This week's podcast is brought to you by Detective Dot and Full Fabric. For those of you who know Code Club, that's pretty much everyone, Sophie Dean was one of the first employees of the Code Club team. Now she's launching an amazing book you should know about and an inspiration for your little ones to be coders and creators this Christmas. The main character is Detective Dot, a 9-year-old coder and agent for the Children's Intelligence Agency. It's a story for kids 8 and over, where readers receive a top-secret personalised CIA membership pack in the post, filled with special missions and goodies. In the stories, you should expect to find farting selfie sticks, micro pigs on hoverboards, and the most high-tech children's spy agency in the world. To celebrate the holidays, EdTech podcast listeners get an awesome 15% discount with the code PODCASTROCK. You can head to detectivedot.org to discover more. And having seen the book, the main character and the general ethos of the Detective Dot mission, I highly recommend you do so. Some more news and offers from Full Fabric later on in the show. Hello everyone and welcome to the EdTech podcast. It's nearly Christmas. This week has been ram-a-jammed. Thanks to Marit Rossi for the Finland and Maths episode, which kicked off on Sunday. On Monday, I joined forces with Michael Forshaw of Innovate My School to judge the ICT Innovator of the Year BET Awards category. The top 3 entries are absolute winners, but you'll have to wait until January to find out more. Also on Monday, I joined others from the UK EdTech scene to take part in a government EdTech Challenger workshop, which sought to identify the main barriers to EdTech growth in the UK and beyond, and the main wish lists of educators and tech in terms of government support. The workshop also helps to frame the work of 2 new government appointments, Alex Waters and Bridie Toer, who will be focused on EdTech respectively. Watch this space on recommendations following the workshop. On the podcast front, I was excited to record with OneNote product expert Mike Tolfson at Microsoft in anticipation of a recording with the CEO of the British Dyslexia Association and reviewing what tech can do to help support those with dyslexia. That episode coming up soon. And continuing with the Microsoft theme, it likely hasn't escaped your attention that Ian Fordham of EdTech UK fame has announced he will be joining Microsoft in January as the head of UK education. A huge shift in the sector, and I've reached out to Ian to hear more. And finally this week, I'm recording this straight off the plane in Paddington, having just flown back from Copenhagen where I chaired the inaugural Nordic EdTech conference. A big shout out to the Danish Technical University and Peer Grade for pulling the event together, with some refreshing speeches from the likes of Canopy Lab, Labster, Kahoot and many more. I'm looking forward to seeing what 2017 looks like. You can catch up by checking the hashtag NordicEdTech16. Now, on to this week's podcast, which is the first of a 2-part series covering EdTech trends at this year's Epic Web Summit. To put Web Summit into context, 53,000 people from 166 countries attended, and there were 4 million live views on the event on Facebook. With so many in attendance, I wanted to use my media pass to pick out exactly what was happening in EdTech and to bring the EdTech community together. That meant throwing an EdTech podcast pop-up drinks, thanks to ASU GSV for supporting, and recording interviews with a variety of startup speakers and attendees. For context, it was also the infamous week that Donald Trump was announced as the incoming president of the United States of America, and excitingly, of all the sectors covered, it was an EdTech innovator, Kubo Robot, who won the whole Web Summit competition, pitching in front of thousands and winning €100,000 from Portugal Ventures in the process. In this first episode, I speak to MIT Professor Brian Subarana, Nikos Sagarakis of iYouth Lab, and Tanya Roquette of Full Fabric on the value of technology in higher education and how to avoid EdTech being a chase to the bottom.
Really, a good textbook, if you are motivated, has not been improved in value. And all EdTech is doing today, is automating grading maybe, basically lowering costs.
I also speak to Head of Innovation at UNHCR, Andrew Harper, on what the tech community and the EdTech community can do for the 65 million currently displaced.
Well, there's just above us here, there's a sign for chat bots and social integration. So what I would like to do is aim to have a global service centre where every refugee or person in need could contact.
And Benjamin Merritt of It's Alive on the role of chatbot technology in educational support services. We also get to know one of the many new phygital services where digital and physical overlap in the form of Magic Bee.
Yeah, I mean, this mixture of physical and digital is really trendy right now.
And now, on with the show.
Brian Subirana, hello to the EdTech podcast.
Hello everyone, I finally made it to Web Summit after about a 9-hour epic journey with my nearly 2-year-old, and after much searching for one another, I'm finally here with Professor Brian Subirana, who's director of the Auto ID Laboratory at MIT University. So my first question, because we're going to keep this snappy. So could you tell our listeners a little bit about your exact specialism at MIT and what you were doing before and what you're doing now?
Yes, so currently I am with the Auto ID Lab and we do work on Internet of Things. But in the long run, I've been working a lot on what's the value of technology, and I've spent the last 12 months working on digital learning strategy for MIT and trying to come up with a strategy for the institute that's consistent with what the Office of Digital Learning is doing and what we're doing with edX, etc.
And the purpose of that initiative, is that for the value of MIT internally or to share externally?
Well, the big focus is external.
Okay.
So the big focus of MIT is to try and extend the open courseware initiative, which was to give content for free, and go a bit beyond and see what we could do with MOOCs and with other technologies.
Okay, so before we get into all of that, because we will, I want to quote. So when we arranged this interview today, I loved your reply, and you can decide whether we include this, but I'd love to if we can. Anyway, so you said, essentially, I contend that attending university is useless because we forget everything, in brackets with some exceptions. This is based on work in progress after 1,000 research papers reviewed. Most EdTech technology is useless today. This is the bit I really like coming up. Simply a cost-cutting technology that lowers value and cost, yes. Education needs to be drastically reinvented or it will become a tourist attraction, very much like the Grand Canyon or La Sagrada Familia. So can you explain that a little bit, what your thoughts are there? Because what struck me as well is that you're saying, look, university in the current model is almost obsolete, or it's irrelevant, but EdTech isn't the answer either. So that's what I thought was interesting. So what's your kind of philosophy behind that?
So let me maybe give you an analogy with other domains. So let's take music and encyclopedias and education. Let's take these three industries and let's see what technology has done to the three of them. You take the case of music and compare with a vinyl, that you had to take it out, put it back on. It was very complicated to listen to music. You could have at most 1,000 records. Now we are in a world where you can have all the music in the world. You can hear it really well.
Yeah.
New music can be downloaded almost instantly. I mean, the increase in value, it's amazing. It's obvious. And the costs have gone down. Same thing with encyclopedias. Now, if you take education, and I've asked this to several people at MIT, including, someone that actually has directed 5 Nobel Prizes. So a lot of people, I ask them the same question, what is the best learning experience you've ever had? And when you ask this question, and I quote Richard Feynman's lectures on physics, because I studied physics, nobody has done anything better than reading those lectures. And those are like 30 years old. Really a good textbook, if you are motivated, has not been improved in value. And all EdTech is doing today, is automating grading maybe, basically lowering costs. We deliver you the class where you are, with video, stream things. It doesn't add value, really, Sophie. Mm-hmm. That's I think is really sad.
And so do you feel like the MOOC sort of idea is a bit of a red herring?
I think the MOOC, it's making the textbook more accessible, and it's nice. I'm not against it, but it's not really adding value. And I think it's a serious thing because computers are catching up, and AI is getting really good, and we should be investing in humans, and all we're doing is cutting costs. So I think it's pretty worrying.
That's really interesting. So do you think there's any challenge to that viewpoint when you think about subjects where perhaps it is a bit more progressive? So I'm thinking about some of the humanities or art subjects where perhaps there's different philosophies or approaches and those change. So the old textbooks that you may have looked back on perhaps date more quickly than a physics one or a maths one, so.
Yeah, but it's hard to find a specific example of this. So it's true. The case where this is more dramatic is biology. Biology, what we're teaching at MIT today, everything has been discovered over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But still, a good textbook is what really helps. And the other part of what you read had to do with the forgetting. I don't know if you want to talk about it or not, because one thing is the value, and the other thing is that basically Ebbinghaus, at the end of the 19th century, in 1895, he published a paper where he published what he called the forgetting curve. He did experiments on himself, and he realized that there was like an exponential curve, and that if you didn't practice, you would forget things very quickly. So we've been doing research trying to see if that's the norm or the exception. And what we found is that everything gets forgotten, everything, unless you use it. So, for example, a pediatrician will remember what he studied about children in his med school years, but he'll forget everything else. Math, most people forget everything because you don't use it. And it's a kind of forgetting that some people say, well, but you remember how to think. Well, there isn't any research that proves that. So you don't remember how to think, you already knew how to think.
So is that your critique of the university model? Because people sort of say, but it gives you analytical skills, or it teaches you how to, conduct yourself as a thinker. But actually you're sort of saying, well, I'm not sure that there's a great amount of evidence for that.
Yeah, we haven't seen any evidence whatsoever about this. And so basically, if you also look at other literature that we review, like in economics, if you finish a degree, you're likely to do well. And it seems there's two reasons. One is because it requires a lot of grit. I mean, if you are a person that can go through all these subjects, you're going to forget, because, most people forget them after 2 months. That means you have a lot of grit, and that apparently is a critical success factor for getting a job. And the second thing has to do with the signaling value. So if you've been accepted at Harper or MIT, you're signaling to the world, hey, I am sort of quote unquote smart. And it seems that the value comes more from the signaling than from what you've learned. Or at least there is no evidence, and we've looked at many, many papers, and there's only one evidence against it, which was some work on Permastore, this professor who's got his PhD like 50 years ago, but he's still working. And we actually interviewed him, and basically he says that from language, if you study a language, you sort of remember it, and there's something that remains there. But there's been a few experiments showing that what's happened is that these people maybe either use the language in the meantime, that's why they were remembering it, or also the standards, the academic standards were going down. So even though it seemed they were maintaining something, it was actually going down. Yeah.
Interesting. And have you followed Malcolm Gladwell's writings on this subject? Because I listened to a podcast of his where he was a guest on a Tim Ferriss podcast, and he was talking about exactly this, like how he was essentially like ripping Harvard apart, and he was very anti that the kind of elite element of university. But there's some crossover.
And Stephen Ballmer, the CEO of Microsoft, he gave a talk which is actually in edX, you can see it.
Okay.
about what he learned in Harvard, and he said he learned nothing in the classroom. So a lot of people say this, and it's a bit embarrassing. But I think there is a solution. I think there is value. I think there is value, and I think it's more about managing what you learn, and it's more about not just stopping school when you graduate. We need to start thinking about how are we going to maintain, just like you send your car for maintenance and maybe you change your tires. Well, maybe we'll have to spend a week here, a week there, sort of remembering. And there is a lot of evidence that if you hit your memory 2 or 3 times after you study something, then the remembering period gets vastly extended. But the problem is that the refreshing has to be done a few months after, and then you shouldn't study for the exam. If you study like the week before, there's really nothing you can do about it. I mean, all the experiment says that if you study the week before, anybody listening that's studying for something, everything's going to be forgotten. I mean, there hasn't been any way in which we can do something with that time you spent.
But then we have so many. I was speaking to a Global Teacher Prize nominee. I think it was yesterday. My days are all blurring into one at the moment. But he was based in Japan, and he was talking about how they've got sort of a nation of crammers. They're expert. The students are expert at cramming knowledge, but he's really like pushing back against this, and he's trying to develop more independent, creative students.
I mean, what's really sad, and just to echo on what you said, is that if we've created a table of how many experiments focus on cramming, so focus on semester learning versus long-term retention. They call it very long-term retention. And basically, like 80% of the experiments are about what's the best way to get the exact done.
And it's like, we're creating a generation of people playing the game from like when they're 16 already.
Yeah, exactly. That starts very young. And in some cases, even memory has a bad connotation. So if you say, well, they're going to make you memorize things, that's considered bad. But I mean, if you don't memorize something, what's the degree worth it?
So how did you take this specifically into sort of digital learning and that kind of thing?
Well, because I've been studying value and technology for a long time, and as a teacher, I was in OpenCourseWare. The first video that OpenCourseWare recorded, I think it's mine. I've asked, and I think it's really mine. I was the first professor to be recorded, a class I gave at Sloan. I've done the first CD-ROM case, business school. I designed a virtual campus.
So you sort of pre-MOOCs.
Yeah, so I've been very involved with this technology, and in parallel I was doing value. That's why, and because I've been at MIT like almost all my life, when MIT had to think about this problem, they thought about me, and and that's how I got started thinking about it.
Is there anything else here that you're excited about seeing?
Well, I was very excited to see some of the IoT startups and what they're doing, and there's a bunch of them that I've seen. On education, I was hoping to see more. And I've been looking. Have you seen some stuff on education?
Well, I literally just got here.
Okay.
Where are you from?
Barcelona.
Oh, really?
Originally.
Okay. So the reference makes sense. Yes. How can people get hold of you as well?
Okay. You can send me an email, which is my last name at mit.edu. It will be Subirana, Subirana at mit.edu.
And are you a Twitter fan?
Not really.
Not really?
No.
Takes too much time up?
Yes. No, I've looked, like social media and Twitter, I've looked at it a bit, but I personally think it takes a bit out of your privacy. And that's one thing. And second, there's so many things out there, and that would be a drainer. And really what I like to do is read papers and have time and concentrate, and that's a bit too thrilling, it's like too instant.
Yeah, and
I'm on a different clock. I'm on a slow clock.
I like the slow clock. That's good. Well, it's great to connect with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophie.
And I'll send you all the links and everything.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so we were just about to disband because we were also going to get kicked out of this room. And just very quickly then, you started talking to me about Mobius and about what MIT are doing in relation to startups in the education space as well.
Yeah, so I think MIT is putting now a lot of effort and resources into trying and help building a startup community and helping students build startups. And as part of that, the president just sent a letter to the MIT community about a month ago on this regard. And we've started an application called Mobius, that was about half a year ago, where all the maker spaces at MIT exist there and you can use them. And that was based on a couple of observations. One was that most of the time they're not being used. And the second was that a lot of people will be interested in using it. And if you want to test a product, it's nice to be able to use the spaces. So initially it was designed just for MIT students, but now we want to open it up also to outside people. And the idea is that should help academics as well. And at the same time, we are trying to become a space where if you want to do a startup, or if you're thinking about studying in a place where you may do a startup, you should definitely come to MIT.
Yeah, and then you don't get you have better retention, I'm guessing, because people don't go, actually I'm going to launch a startup, and then they leave, and they can actually keep that in-house.
Exactly. We make the transition, we create more loyalty, and then it's better for the students that follow us. So, there's many examples of companies that have started at MIT. They say that we will be like the 7th or 8th biggest country in the world if, and I don't know if that's the exact number, but it's like an insane number, if we created a country just with the companies that MIT created.
Wow, that would be an interesting country to live in.
Yes, absolutely.
So first up, what's your name?
I'm Nikos Zangarakis.
Okay.
I'm from Greece.
There you go, there's the first two. What's your company called?
The company is called iYouth Lab. It is basically a consumer internet platform that wants to build a community that is going to connect university students, professors, universities, research centers and researchers in collaborations in research projects. So our main focus is the research projects.
And what educational problem does it solve?
Okay, so let's say, to give you an example, let's say that there is a USA student that is building a software for a bionic arm, and there is a Japan student that is building the actual bionic arm. Right now there is no way to connect to each other and find each other in a strictly academic and scientific oriented context. So through our youth lab they will be able to find each other and create a joint project together in order to showcase it and to run it.
So basically it might help expedite academic collaboration.
Exactly. What we want to do is to promote innovation while studying. Because right now the norm is that you innovate and you create startups after you end your studies. And that's because you go to that ecosystem of innovation at that kind of age. Okay? But what we want to build is an ecosystem of innovation while studying. That's how it's going to happen with a global community.
And how do you get the universities on board when they are perhaps arguably about, a walled garden approach to their own branding and their own expertise, and they want to try and, I think that's quite an interesting challenge potentially.
Yes. The good thing is that there are two kinds of universities that, at least that we see and that we head to. One type of university is the university that is already famous, the university that already runs innovation in the world, the university that is all over the place.
There's someone here from MIT.
You heard that he came to us?
No.
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, he came to us.
You were describing it, and I was thinking, that one.
He came to us, and what he told me is that he was in the next office when IoT was created. And he's a very, very nice person.
Yeah.
What we try to do is not just to create a community platform to connect each other, but we want to use IoT integration in it. What that means is that, let's go back to the example with the students. The one student has the software, the other student has the hardware, and they need, in the case of the bionic arm, they need, a 3D printer. Okay, so let's say that they go to a Cisco R&D department, that they have such 3D printers, and connect their data through iYouth Lab, and they can send and receive data with the 3D printer in order to facilitate their own vision and make the research project actually work through iYouth Lab.
And so the differentiator or the kind of user experience benefit to academics who are thinking of, because you do have platforms like LinkedIn or others, is that
the context.
It's the context, and
that
would it all be, what's the security like in terms of data sharing and that kind of thing?
Oh, okay. Security and data sharing was an issue like something 5 years ago, but now everyone knows that everything is being recorded. But we try not to do that. We try not to record the messages because we don't need them. We try to record basically the actual collaboration. So that's one of our pitch in investors, because one strategic focus for monetization is premium accounts. And through premium accounts, let's say an R&D department or a professor could have enhanced statistics. What that means is that, let's say that a professor wants to know where innovation is heading in robotics. And through a youth lab, you can know that Japan and USA are the best collaborators in robotics because they have the most influential projects.
Interesting. And so if you're outside of this, I'm just thinking from a journalistic point of view, or for people who want to document particular innovation in particular academic areas.
You mean about IP? Intellectual property?
No, what I'm interested in is will people external to the platform be able to search who are the experts in 3D printing, or will you be able to search and see all the academics?
Yes, but that's the point. The point is that you can connect them. The point is that, let's say, one investor one day told me that, okay, so you're building Tinder for education. It means that you are building a matching algorithm based on academic interest.
And have you thought about the recruitment and the expertise side of this? Because you can see, from a recruitment point of view, I know this is about Wall Street University, but if I was head of people at Google or something like that, it'd be quite interesting to potentially pick people off. That might be an extra way you could diversify your business.
Okay, so you mean professionals?
Yeah, I think just in terms of recruitment, people, I can see, which is where LinkedIn, a big part of their business.
The key link to that is the research centers.
What, sorry?
The research centers, the R&D departments of businesses.
Yeah.
That's the key link. That's why we need the alumni in there.
And have you thought about that as part of your business, though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's we needed a link with business, but we don't want to be LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. We need the UI of LinkedIn because people should be familiar with the platform. Okay?
Yeah.
Since it's not that complex, but it has lots of stuff you can do. So you have to be structured like LinkedIn. Okay, but we're not professional oriented, even though you need professionals. So the link is research centers. Research centers are R&D departments of, let's say, Google.
Yeah,
Google has R&D departments all over the world. The people that work in the R&D departments are alumni of some sort of university. So they have scientific interest.
Got you.
Okay.
Why the name iYouth Lab?
Okay. The basic reason why we build it is because we believe that we live in times where students need to innovate even more. Students need to innovate. Students need to think scientifically. Students need to question scientific laws. Students need to change quantum physics, change general relativity. So if you create the ecosystem that allows influence in a way that, let's say that I am a student in a university in India and there's a student in a university in Stanford, okay? And I see in an academic and purely scientific perspective his actions. That way I might be influenced. You understand what I mean? I might be influencing his action and I can say, oh, I can do that too in India. So that way you can create an environment and an ecosystem of innovation while studying. Because what students do not realize is that the basic benefit of a university is its infrastructure and the brilliant minds that are around. I hope that I had that kind of mindset while studying, okay, because I could make a youth lab with no money at all. I couldn't need any fund, because I would have the infrastructure, I would have a huge team, I would have the networking from my professors, You understand what I mean?
Yeah. So you're actually in a very privileged position when you're in that university environment, and it's knowing how to make the most of it whilst you're there, and you have that youthful energy as well. It's very exciting. I like it.
I'm happy that you find it exciting.
No, it is because I think that's the thing. It's, you know, you could do a Google search, you could identify this person, and you've then got to, you know, you can do it, but this just makes it much easier to do that quickly, I think, and with a shared context. So
it's also the matter of validation, because if you have a profile with lots of projects, I can say that I've made tons of projects, and I couldn't not one, you know. But through collaborations, you know, there is another professor in MIT that says, yeah, I worked with that guy in that project, so that project is validated.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, to me, that's why we say that it's the one and only academic CV for students, because it's purely for your academic work. You know what I mean?
And what's you know, what I'm just thinking in terms of your own personal journey to set this up.
Okay.
You know, who influenced you, or what was the...
I was working on a research center in Denmark, in Aarhus University.
So many people here from Denmark. You got something special going on in Denmark.
What? Sorry?
There's something special going on in Denmark.
The special thing in Denmark is that they are doing international and national at the same time. So they are open to the benefits of internationalism, and open to the benefits of nationalism, and the opposite. So you can benefit from whatever you want. You know what I mean? If it's an environment that benefits everyone, and the path that you will take, that kind of influence you will have from that environment.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean?
Well, I think if I understand what you mean, it's very exciting, because I think at the moment that's what a lot of this politics is about, is like too much nationalism and then people retreating to nationalism. So perhaps that halfway house is quite useful.
Exactly. The best example is you woke up this morning and you learn that Trump won the elections, okay?
I thought you said a Trump, but yeah, a Trump, yeah.
Trump won the elections.
I know, that's what I mean, yeah.
Come on. And that affects us all.
Yeah.
Okay? In an international kind of way.
It's sort of downgraded politics to something that may perhaps be irrelevant, in my opinion. Okay, cool. And then which are some of your biggest influences? So if you had to think, you know, either big thinkers
I think Seth Godin is one of my favorite thinkers. Gary Vaynerchuk, I think he's coming here.
Yeah.
Seth Godin, because of his open mind in art, in the artistic way of business, you know, he's an artist in business.
Yeah.
He's amazing. And Gary Vaynerchuk, for the exact opposite. He's a pure salesman.
Yeah.
You know, he's a beast. But he knows what people want. Seth Godin knows what you have to want as an individual, and Gary Vaynerchuk knows how you can do what you want to what the people want.
So actioning it.
So these are my two biggest influences.
And who are you looking to collaborate with? So I'm guessing you want to hear from more universities and research centres and...
Yes, we have two goals. One goal is the universities and researchers, which basically will help us with traction, even though we don't necessarily look for traction right now, because even though we have an MVP, it's not 100% stable, to put it that way. So we don't want to make bad while trying to do good.
Yep.
You know what I mean? To the platform. And the other thing that we're looking for is funds, of course. Yes, because we understand that no matter the cause, no matter our goal, no matter our dream or whatever, you're a business and you are a consumer internet platform. Okay, so you need traction. And for traction, you need marketing campaigns. And for marketing campaigns, you need money. And for money, you need funds. And I can go all the way down, but I won't.
Well, I think there's a lot in it, so good luck with it all. Good luck with your pitch.
Thank you very much.
And how can people get hold of you if they are interested to contact you?
How many people?
How can people contact you?
Okay. People can go to whyyouthlab.com and register. if they found this interesting, or they can find us in Facebook, in Twitter, in Instagram, in LinkedIn. We're everywhere.
Okay.
So if you put iYouth Lab, not Youth Lab, iYouth Lab,
Yeah.
they will find everything.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And see you this evening as well.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
So, what's your name?
Tanya,
And what's your second name?
Rocket.
Not Croquette, Rocket.
Rocket.
Yeah. And where are you from?
I'm originally from Lisbon, but I live in London.
Okay, perfect. And what's the name of your company and what do you do?
Full Fabric. We're a student relationship management for universities.
Okay, so who are you aimed at in terms of your user type?
So we aim at universities that want to offer a better student experience.
Okay, and what brings you to Web Summits?
So as a technology company, we're constantly looking at how we can innovate and bring new ideas and technologies to universities, and that's why we're here.
Okay, and have you seen anything relating to either EdTech or educational trends here that you've picked up on?
Yeah, I've seen several ideas. There's certainly a lot to digest. The one thing that I think is going to be our biggest takeaway in our product will be how we can use gamification in the application process.
It's quite funny, we've got a lady sat here from the gaming community, so you guys should chat afterwards. So what educational problem do you solve?
So most universities rely on really legacy technology or no technology at all, which makes their life much easier and the experience for the candidates really frustrating. And that's what we're solving. We're making the life of universities much easier by being able to manage the entire student relationship from initial inquiry to enrollment and even beyond. And from the student perspective, we're giving them a much easier and no friction experience, so making the application process a lot smoother and easier.
So, I mean, in terms of your journey to set up Full Fabric, you know, who's one of your biggest influences in your approach to education? I know that previously you worked within a university yourself, so are there any particular influences in terms of either theorists or thinkers or speakers or other product leaders out there that has had an impact on what you do?
Certainly. So we look at what other industries are doing. For example, best practices in marketing and how we can bring that to universities. So even things like Salesforce, how can we give the experience that Salesforce gives to B2B companies into universities, because Salesforce is a generic CRM for companies, and so some universities use it, but it doesn't give a full experience because it's not catered to universities, and that's what we do.
In your journey with Full Fabric, how receptive have you found universities to what you're doing, and what obstacles have you had to overcome, I suppose, to take people on that journey with you?
So obviously universities are very big institutions, and so sometimes they're a bit resistant to change and scared of innovation, and so they want other schools doing it first before they actually take the first step. But in terms of what we're doing, I think most universities now understand the impact of having an integrated software solution, because their audience are digital natives, and so they understand that now offering a PDF application or losing applicant data is not acceptable. And these are where situations, or using an Excel spreadsheet to manage 300,000 leads, it's impossible. There's no way they can do a good job with that. And so that's how we help, really making sure universities have the right to attract the best students, the best candidates that have fit with their degree programs and institution.
For those people listening in, are there any particular people you're looking to connect with, whether, it might be other startups or scale-ups or investors, or who would you like to reach out to come and connect with you?
Absolutely. We're also always looking for partners, people that are doing innovative things in the industry and that we can partner with. We have an API, so we integrate with other technologies. So anything that can improve the applicant and the student experience and the day-to-day of the students, we're always eager to connect with.
And how can people go about that if they want to connect with you? Are you on Twitter or...?
We're on Twitter, we're our website as well. You can hook me on LinkedIn, so Very easy. Tanya at Full Fabric.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you.
A quick break before the next section of the podcast to bring you this message from Full Fabric. I met Tanya out at Web Summit at the EdTech podcast pop-up drinks, and Tanya set up Full Fabric after working in a university admissions department and getting increasingly frustrated at the lack of process involved in supporting and welcoming students. What's evolved many years later is a software solution that helps universities manage their prospects from initial inquiry all the way through to enrolment. Importantly, Full Fabric is modular and customizable, so it lets universities recruit, market to and admit students using a single integrated platform. All data is hosted on the cloud and can be accessed anytime, anywhere, and on a range of devices, and because of a German university who are an early client, it's got all the robust security you'd expect in the form of data protection and compliance. If you work for a university admissions process team and fancy finding out more and setting up a free consultation, you can visit learn.fullfabric.com/podcast. And now, back on with the show.
There's a lot of focus on the Syrian crisis, and one of the reasons for that is that it's big, it's new, but around the world there's probably 65 million people in need, and the Syrians are one element of that. So let's also not forget the people from South Sudan. We've got a refugee camp just opened in Uganda. There's 200,000 people who have just come into that camp in the last couple of months. So fine, Syria takes the highlights, but let's not forget Africa, let's not forget South Asia, Afghanistan, a lot of the protracted issues. And in answering the issue of education, we've also got to take into account that less and less people are actually returning to their homes. Last year was not only the highest numbers of refugees, and at a rate of 24 people being displaced per minute, but we almost had no one return to their home countries, and that was probably even more of a concern. So when we look at education, we can't look at the formal way of how we do things, which is establish a school, support the host community. We obviously have to do that, that's the preference, get local accreditation, but if we look at the numbers of schools that would be required to meet the numbers of people displaced every year, we'd have to build 12,000 new schools every year without fail, and no one is doing that. So we need to have a seismic shift in how we look at education. Formal is important, but what happens when children, including from Syria, but also Afghanistan and elsewhere, if they've missed out on schooling for the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years? What if there's adults who have never had the opportunity to go to school? So we've got to start looking at not only education, but providing a modular learning experience. And this is where technology is not only important, it's critical, because there's no other way which we can get learning opportunities to the tens of millions of people. So we need to position ourselves in what will we be faced with in 5 years' time. We could be faced with 100 million plus people displaced. If that's the case, then we need to start working now on ensuring that the world is connected. And again, not just the refugees and IDPs, but also the host communities, every vulnerable population. Because when we have initiatives, we need to make sure that they're sustainable and they're accepted by the local governments. We need to have a global structure in place rather than relying on the initiatives. And that global structure would be working with individual organisations who are in the best position. But at the moment, it's almost impossible for a refugee anywhere in the world to be heard. Any Pakistani child who's not been denied to go to school to be heard. So we have to find this, basically we need to connect the world's population, communicate with them, refer back to them and link them in. I think this is one of the challenges that we've got. We need to be listening more to the refugees.
Okay, so first up, what's your name?
My name's Andrew Harper. I'm head of the Innovation Service at UNHCR.
Okay, wonderful. And what brings you to Web Summit?
We're here to learn. Basically, we're confronted by massive challenges, which in all reality we're not doing enough to deal with. There's probably 24 people being displaced per minute. The numbers of people displaced over the last 5 years has almost doubled. What will it be in the next 5 years? So we need to reach out to others who have got ideas, suggestions, different modalities of working. So it's UNHCR opening up to innovation, to technology, to try and do things better.
And I mean, I've just witnessed your panel discussion here, which I suppose was looking at, the role of tech in this displacement, or those with refugee status more broadly. And what I was really interested in is your particular thoughts on education, because obviously there is the potential for huge gaps in educational development and that kind of thing. So could you, for the sake of our listeners, sort of repeat your main thoughts on that?
Well, if you're looking at something like 65 million people who have been displaced or in need, half of those are children, then you're looking at tens of millions of people who are missing out on school. And year on year, that number is growing. And so we're not just talking about the potential for a lost generation, we are actually talking about lost generations, going back to Iraq, going back to Afghanistan before. So we have to find different ways of working, different modalities. Obviously, it would be preferential to have refugee children and IDP children in the schools and the host communities, but where refugees are generally located are in the most impoverished parts of the world, where governments are already struggling to pay their teachers, have enough classroom space and textbooks. So we have to find different ways of working. According to some stats, we would need to build 12,000 new classrooms per year in order to deal with the numbers of refugees being created. And that's just not going to happen. So if we can't deal with the massive numbers of displacement, then how do we find different learning opportunities? How do we provide different learning opportunities? If you're a Pakistani girl who, because of cultural reasons or because of security, is not able to access school, can we bring learning opportunities to her in her home, in a safe place? Refugees coming from the Democratic Republic of Congo, from Burundi, from South Sudan. Some of these classrooms in the camps, they have up to 150 students per classroom. One teacher who's overwhelmed. So this is not good enough. We need to find different ways. There's obviously a focus on the Syria crisis, but we cannot forget the protracted situations, also the emerging situations in Africa, and look for different opportunities. Connectivity, I think, will be key, providing internet access, but then also providing the modules, the accreditation to learning opportunities, and then because so many adults have missed out on school and a formal education, then we probably have to look at adult learning over age learning. So this is we have to be much more ambitious than the current response, which is okay, let's build a school in a refugee camp, particularly when there's such a big movement of refugees towards urban environments. So my job is to think ambitiously, think about how we can deal with tens of millions of people in need of a learning opportunity in years to come. And this will have to be not only addressed just towards refugees, because to get the buy-in of the governments, we need to also be providing support to their populations. Who are they concerned about? How can we improve the education level, the skill level of the host communities? If we do that, then they might be more interested in making sure that refugees have access to schooling.
So the types of people we have listening in are senior leaders in education, but also investors, they're tech startups, and many of them, and sort of on the discussion within education at the moment, are mindful of the fact that technology may have a part to play, and that they may have a part to play in this. What would your message be to those different types of people involved in education innovation, and how they can help in a way that's impactful?
Well, I'm desperate. I'm desperate for good ideas in which we can break the impasse. I need, rather than sort of looking at current targets of getting 200,000 children into school, we should be talking about 2 million. We should be talking tens of millions of learning opportunities. So it's I'm not closing any doors, any windows to ideas, suggestions, because this is too important. We can't be bureaucratic about it. We can't be self-centered about it. We need to be engaged with people with legitimate, sustainable ideas, which can be scaled up massively.
And how can people contact you if they do think that they can have a part to play in that?
Well, my name's Andrew Harper. My email address is harper@unhcr.org. That's the simplest way.
Okay.
Direct contact.
So, and I saw you're on Twitter as well. So
yeah, I'm on Twitter. So &_Harper.
Yeah.
Education is key. Like if you look at the people around here, there may be 10, 20,000 people at the Web Summit. They've all benefited from having access to school.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine the potential that 65 million people have from having an opportunity to learn. So it's just the right thing to do. And so I would like to try and galvanize as much energy from the very bright people who are here to help the people who are also bright but are not having the access to opportunities.
And I don't know if you've had much time here yet, but have you noticed any other, whether it's speakers or have you had meetings or spoken to people exhibiting their startups here? Have you noticed any trends relevant for what you do or education generally?
There's just above us here, there's a sign for chat bots and social integration. So what I would like to do is aim to have a global service centre where every refugee or person in need could contact. They have their audio, language translated to their file, be able to have whatever type of web page translated into their language. So it's how do we deal with 100 million people without necessarily having to put in tens of thousands of staff to answer phones. We can use deep learning, we can use AI more efficiently and effectively in order to prioritise interventions.
Yeah.
And it's something which we tried in Jordan successfully. We just probably have to ramp that up many-fold.
And who did you work with on that project in Jordan?
Well, what we did in Jordan was we introduced biometrics, biometric authentication, which meant that refugees could access cash assistance rather than in-kind assistance, moving away from the traditional way of humanitarian support, which is providing in-kind, to giving people cash so they can choose what's best for them and their families. And how we did that was that they would go to an ATM fitted with a iris scanner. They would not need a PIN code or a card. That would be authenticated against UNHCR's data bank. Without the details going to the bank, it would be authenticated against UNHCR. Cash would be provided through the ATM. So this cuts down on costs, it cuts down on people having to wait, the indignity of it all, and it, most importantly, it cuts down the overheads. So we were able to cut the overheads from, say, 30% to about 2%. And so this is something which the UN, like UNHCR, I think is leading the world in, but it's good for today, but we need to be thinking 5 years ahead. So how do we introduce a more effective but also empathetic type of response to refugees so that they can be heard?
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Andrea. I appreciate your time as well.
No problems. Thank you.
Okay, so first off, what's your name?
Benjamin.
Benjamin, and it's Benjamin Merritt.
Exactly.
And where are you from, Benjamin?
I'm from Paris.
Okay, fantastic. And what's the name of your company and what do you do?
So we are It's Alive. So It's Alive is a Facebook chatbot builder. So the idea behind this is to enable anyone to create its own Facebook chatbot. Because today the problem is it's very complicated to make a Facebook chatbot. Big companies can make them because they have like 10 engineers and they can do them easily. Other big companies can ask agencies to do them. But we find that today this technology and this accessibility should be accessible to like all the restaurants, all the small and businesses, and probably education.
And so for people listening who don't understand what a chatbot is, can you explain what that is very simply?
Of course. So if you want, when you are on a Facebook page and you contact the Facebook page in the private messages, what you have is you open Facebook Messenger. So what's a Facebook Messenger chatbot is, it's automating replies on questions. So let's say you just say hello. I have a recipe behind this, and I say hello. How are you? What do you want to know today? And on the Facebook chatbot, what's interesting is that you can drive the conversation, and so maybe often people don't know what to say. And they just say hello, they just have one question. So you can answer to that question, and after you can just drive them to all your services and all your different information.
The context of education, a huge amount of teachers, for example, use Facebook. And so you will have either schools or also services or products for teachers on Facebook.
Yeah.
So thinking about some of the context within education, how do you think chatbots could be involved?
Well, I mean, like students have a lot of questions. I've been a student. Sometimes I just don't want to ask my teacher this question because it's maybe a bit embarrassing, or I don't know. I just don't want to. I want to ask it, but I won't do it. With the chatbots, it will be a lot easier. So I can just go to the chatbot. Maybe one teacher could have like a Facebook page, and I could have like, it doesn't even need to have a Facebook page, but it could have like a Facebook chatbot, and you could just drive conversation like this and reply to the questions. Let's say we can say, like something that works a lot today is like people or students are asking themselves, how can I delete friends on Facebook? I'm talking about like privacy and security on social networks, stuff like that. You see that young people have a lot of questions, like, but they are not going to ask them to their teachers. I'm sure if a teacher does this Facebook chatbot with replies to all these questions, should I say yes to someone I don't know that suggests me and friends on Facebook? We could reply, and we could drive the conversation on maybe a great article about this topic, this question, really quickly.
And so when we were chatting earlier, I was sort of also mentioning the conversation I heard with the gentleman from UNHCR talking about the refugee crisis and education and lost years of education, and actually the one of the huge issues being scale. So you've got 65 million displaced people. So he's looking at chatbots for potentially helping to organise and support those people, whether it's with other services or also with educational aims. So I guess the issue, again, it goes back to scale. So where you have a huge mass of people asking the same questions and that kind of thing.
Exactly. What's interesting, like, we believe that a chatbot has a main purpose. It's to reply to specific questions. You need quick answers, and a chatbot can drive you on the direction to find the complete answer. On the scale issue, we are all human, we can't reply to all the questions. So when you have a crisis, when you have like a real event like this, and you're receiving like 500 messages per day, you just can't do this. A chatbot could do it. A chatbot could reply at all the questions, like the common questions, like where, why, what's the purpose behind this? And could maybe, if it can't reply, just say, okay, I can't reply to this, but you can find more information here, and you can maybe call this hotline that is dedicated for this.
I mean, one other question before we finish.
On the demand-specific needs for clients, we are more on the small businesses part. We believe like a restaurant, they don't want to pay 1,000 euros to have a chatbot. They don't want to ask an agency, or they have no developing skills. But they could do a chatbot in like half an hour, very quickly.
Well, it's quite interesting because there's a lot of people that listen to this that will be EdTech startups. So, they may have 1 to 3 people in their company. They may launch a product on, they may work with schools, but they may also go direct to consumer through something like Amazon. And as a result, they have a lot of inbound queries. And with a small team, it's very hard to manage all of that. So I'm sure there would be lots of people interested in, how this could apply to them as well.
Totally. Like today, we saw at least like 20, just like it's like half of the day, and we saw like 20 people, like startups, launching products and saying, okay, it's awesome. We are 5 people. Our products like really work. Like people are asking for a lot of questions, but now I can't focus on making the product greater, and I need to reply to all the questions. And it's always the same questions. It's where is it, when is it available, where is it, how much is it, and stuff like this. And the chatbot would just like drive the conversations. Like all the people asking for the small questions, they get quick replies. The other people can have like real bigger replies.
And do you recommend personalizing your chatbots? Do you give them names or?
So what we believe is like a chatbot is kind of an extension of yourself. That's what we like to say. So if you like to put jokes, just put jokes. The chatbot just needs to be like you. And so you should like put jokes, put GIFs, put funny stuff.
And so are you guys on Twitter?
Yeah, we're on Twitter.
And what's your handle on Twitter?
It's at It's Alive app. So It's Alive app.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Benjamin. I really appreciate that.
Looking forward. Thank you.
So what's your name?
My name is Hugo Ribeiro.
And where are you from?
I'm from Portugal.
And which part?
From Porto, living right now in Braga, but born in Porto.
And I heard Braga's like the Silicon Valley, or well, we don't like to say it's the Silicon Valley, but it's the tech part. Is that correct?
Yeah. There are a lot of tech companies in Braga, and we also participated in an acceleration program and Startup Braga. So that's kind of our valley.
Okay, excellent. So what's your company name and what do you do?
So our company is Magic Bee. and we create smart wooden toys for iPad that merge physical interaction and digital content. So we have right now games that can interact with specific physical toys.
So just for the sake of those listening, so if you imagine the archetypal wooden blocks and then a really pleasing aesthetic interface on the iPad. So we've just been having a play, and if you imagine certain challenges, so the character needing to get up over a tree and that kind of thing, the wooden blocks, you're invited to place them in a way that means that that character can navigate its surroundings. So I suppose it's those traditional wooden blocks interacting with the iPad and the view on that. So my next question is, what educational problem do you solve?
Kids are losing touch with physical toys, and there are consequences on fine motor skills, on spatial reasoning. And with this kind of games, we'd like to balance the way they connect with digital content, but also the way they connect with physical toys, physical pieces that they can play and explore. And even when they are bored and sick of playing with the tablet, they can turn it off and still continue to play. So we believe that we are bringing the tradition and old wooden toys to a more 21st century approach.
Okay, interesting. You mentioned that there are some other platforms or toys out there that interact with the sort of physical world and what's happening in digital. What are some of those companies?
For instance, Osmo, that is an American company, already do this kind of connection between physical and digital. But we in some way create a kind of augmented reality way of playing, because we can see content interact with our own blocks, and so it's a more natural way of playing. And when you see other kinds of toys, it's not the way your kids play. So it's a kind of creating a new style of play, and not that natural. Mm-hmm. So we believe that with our toys, they can actually play as they could be playing only with physical toys, but now they are rewarded with the interaction with the content, with the games.
And who is it primarily aimed at?
So it is for kids from 2.5 years till 8 years. Okay. So we have different challenges adapted to these ages, and kids can start by doing some more simple tasks, and then they can evolve, and then they can build larger constructions with different kinds of difficulty. And also we would like that parents and kids play together and help each other on the way that they connect around the tablets and also the physical toys.
And so if people are interested as well, is this available? Can you buy it off the shelf? Where can you get this from?
Right now it is on the Amazon, the US store, and we are about to launch it on the Amazon Launchpad in UK. So okay. It's something that it's going to be live in a couple of weeks.
In time for Christmas, perhaps?
Yeah, in time for Christmas, of course. So we are really excited to be on the Amazon Launchpad UK. And we believe that it's going to be a huge success in Christmas.
And what's Launchpad? I'm not familiar with that. Is that?
Launchpad is a special part of Amazon that is dedicated to innovative products from startups. So Amazon helps startups to promote the products. Mm-hmm. And there you can find Osmo, that is the other company that I was talking about. And you have a lot of other products.
And so, that's obviously the direct-to-consumer route. Are you also looking to connect with whether it's primary schools or nurseries, or is that like the next phase?
Yeah, exactly. It is on our plans. We want to be a very close connection with schools, because this is a fun way to play, but also it is a fun way to learn. And we believe that there's a space in schools so kids can enhance their skills by playing these kind of games. And these are only the first games that we are developing, but our technology allows us to create more challenging games with other kinds of features, and always with the concern of connecting digital and also physical.
And how did you get into launching this product? What's your story behind getting to this point?
Fortunately, it all starts with a problem. So I have 2 kids, and I have a small kid with 3 years old that is a screen addict, so an iPad addict, and we saw that they really enjoy content. And they pass much time in front of YouTube's playing videos than playing with traditional or regular toys. And we believe that if we tried only to give them toys that cannot have the content and richness of content, that they are not enough stimulated by toys. And so we thought that maybe if you can connect all the toys that they have with digital content, maybe they can have a more balanced way of playing. And so we tried to create that experience, and we have the technology that we developed that can enhance this kind of experience.
And you're sat here with your co-founder. So what do you do, and what does he do?
So I'm the marketing guy.
Okay.
My background is in marketing, also parents, of course. And Pedro, it's more on the technical side. Can pass to Pedro so he can explain a little bit more.
Hi, Pedro Branco. Also, of course, here at Magic Bee. I have a technical background. I come from academia. I do research in user interfaces for children and for learning. And so I met Tugu through a common friend. And at the time we were both kind of looking into this and struggling with these issues of kids, of screen time, of play time. And so also the work that I did and the project that Tugu was working on kind of fitted together in the sense of trying to get here some good fit between the kids, the learning, the experience. Yeah.
How can people get hold of you?
I mean, I guess the best way is just to go to our website, magicbee.com, magic with a K.
You guys are on Twitter though, aren't you?
Yeah, Magic Bee Toys, exactly. Related to this matter, so keep following us.
Fantastic. Well, have a great rest of your day, and thanks for coming on the EdTech podcast.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Don't forget to share the podcast with a friend if you enjoyed this episode, or if you fancy sponsoring the next episode. It's the edtechpodcast@gmail.com. Next week, we're back with the second part of the Web Summit series, interviewing the South African government on early years education innovation, a whole range of further startups, and the founder of the winning Web Summit pitch competition, Cubo Robot. See you then.